No group in America has been more harmed by Hillary Clinton's policies than African Americans. No group. No group. If Hillary Clinton's goal was to inflict pain on the African American community, she could not have done a better job. It's a disgrace. Tonight, I'm asking for the vote of every single African American citizen in this country who wants to see a better future. Look how much African American communities have suffered under Democratic control. To those I say the following: what do you have to lose by trying something new like Trump? What do you have to lose? I say it again, what do you have to lose? Look, what do you have to lose? You're living in poverty, your schools are no good, you have no jobs, 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose? America must reject the bigotry of Hillary Clinton, who sees communities of color only as votes, not as human beings worthy of a better future.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No. Because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. When a candidate picks a vice president, there's usually a solid reason for landing on that person. Either they can carry a state on election day, or they fill in a gap on the presidential nominee's resume, like in foreign policy, for example. So Biden's pick of Kamala Harris is proving to be quite weird, practically brain dead, in fact. First, she's from California, hardly a state that threatens to turn red, so no help there. And Kamala Harris has no real experience in anything significant, other than screeching at and blasting and haranguing Brett Kavanaugh during his Supreme Court hearings. During her term in the U.S. Senate, she has sponsored no bills of import, but just signed on to the usual list of Marxist claptrap. While she was in California as Attorney General before that, in a far more friendly Marxist environment, she was able to beat back pro-lifers and advance the cause of same-sex marriage. She's been picked by Biden because she's a woman, and he was under intense pressure from Marxists to pick a black woman, which every single person on earth understands means African American, not just someone who doesn't have white skin. You know, descendants of slaves, grown up in poverty, victims of white privilege, all of that. But Kamala checks none of those boxes, not a single one. For starters, her father admits in an online biography seen here that he is descended from Irishmen, and his side of the family owned a plantation in Jamaica, complete with slaves. Yep, slaves. You heard right. Kamala is a descendant of slave owners. Likewise, she has absolutely zero biological ties to the African American community. She is not descended from sharecroppers. Her ancestors were not kidnapped from Africa and chained in slave ship galleys and sold in markets. None of that applies to her. And that's just her father's side. Her mother's side is even less applicable to the whole question of racism aimed at blacks. Her mother's family is from Madras, India. Mom was a cancer researcher who met and married Kamala's father in Berkeley, California in the 1960s when they were working and studying together. A few years later, her parents divorced. Mom got a nice job at a Canadian university, and Kamala, with her younger sister, went to live with her mother, where she grew up in a racist-free environment in Montreal. Kamala has, in fact, had none of the usual experience of what everyone understands as the American black experience. She's Jamaican and Indian. At least Obama was half black. Kamala is no black, commonly understood. Likewise, to curry favor with the non-blacks when she was Attorney General of California, she pursued a vigorous anti-crime policy which massively drove up incarceration rates of young black men. That's something her running mate, Joe Biden, also did when he was in the U.S. Senate, the same man who also verbally opposed desegregation in schooling. Kamala actually ripped him on stage at the party's primary debates for being a racist.
You also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
You know, it's kind of curious, all this. A racist man who keeps insulting blacks with condescending comments, and a fake African-American woman who is not of African descent, but Jamaican and Indian, who will now march off together on a "blacks need to vote for us because we are woke" campaign, which will prove to be one of the most hypocritical shams in the history of U.S. politics.
It doesn't matter who rules Babylon. You see, the Democrats and Republicans are both wings of the same bird, representing these Gentiles, principally led by Esau, Edom, Idumea. So this little face-off doesn't matter, because wisdom says that choosing the lesser of two evils is still choosing evil. It doesn't matter who rules over Babylon. This is what the word of the Lord says in Daniel chapter 4, verse 17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers. You see, the Lord has somebody watching over this earth and everybody on it, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living, those living on the earth, may know that the Most High, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever, those Gentiles, he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men, the lowest of mankind, collectively speaking. And another precept, Ecclesiasticus chapter 10, verse 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, like colonization, raping of resources, by deception, the kingdom is translated from one people to another, and it has gone on and on again all around the earth and will continue until Yahushua HaMashiach returns to judge these Gentiles and the wicked of our people and to rescue those Israelites that are the elect. I'll leave you in the most capable hands of the Most High Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua.